It's the Anfield Wrap. It's John Gibbons hosting this week, and I'm joined by Josh Sexton, by Rob Gutman, and by Ian Salmon to talk about another Liverpool victory. It's 2 from 2 from the Reds in the Premier League, but this was the first one back at Anfield. And Ian Salmon, I'll start with you. Jurgen Klopp called it the best 12:30 atmosphere we ever had, and I think there's maybe a couple that run it close, but it was still pretty good. Fantastic for so many Liverpool fans to be back in, and we made some noise, that's for sure.
We did. It was wonderful. I saw somebody on the subscribers group yesterday asking what the atmosphere was like because it sounded really quiet on the telly. It's kind of like, well, I'm sitting in the main stand at the Kop end, so all I can hear is the Kop, and it sounded great where I was for the vast majority of the game, but you could hear the Annie Road singing. I saw somebody say we were outsung by Burnley. It's like, I don't remember hearing Burnley say a single word from their end. It was wonderful to be back in. I mean, I was back in May, but I was sat in the Kop because I couldn't get tickets in my own seat. So I got there, my slot was 10:45 to 11:15. I stood outside till 11:16 because I wanted to clap a coach, which was a wonderful experience. I have no idea if there was anybody on it at all. It could have been a complete dummy because I'm looking at going, these lads shouldn't be getting in the ground after the crowd. But clapped the coach, but going by, walked in, held my phone up. I know there was talk about nightmare queues around about 12:30, but 11:15 there was no problem at all. Walked in, did it. Was going to go and get a pint. He said I had to go and see my seat first, so I had to go and stand in my seat, then I could go and get a pint. So that's me starting on the ale at 11:30 in the morning, which is basically unheard of. but the atmosphere was fantastic. It was just a fantastic feeling just to be back in a full ground full of people with, everything. The green was greener, the red was redder. Yeah, the ground was bigger than you remember. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, it was the sound for me, Rob, with 50,000 people clapping before the game, which was so loud. I couldn't believe it. And there was the lovely minute's applause for Andrew Devine, but also for people, for lots of people we've unfortunately lost in the time we've been apart. And, just that noise. And it was great. I didn't see you, unfortunately, on Saturday. I saw your Danny, though, at half time, and he was buzzing. I had a big grin on his face, and he was sort of loving being back. And that was the general vibe.
He said you weren't coming in to see us this time, but you would next time. Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? I didn't notice, like Ian, I didn't notice anything other than a perpetual noise. It's a lot different from the noise you hear when you're watching it on the telly. Let's put it like that. I mean, it was great. You know what? There's been a lot of chat about how shit 12:30s are and how different this was going to be. In the week coming to it, I sometimes think we overplay. Just a side point, we overplay how shit 12:30s are. I think what's changed is I think back to. Do you remember when we used to play Man U like at 11:30? Those times Fowler and Reece were scoring, or those derbies. They weren't quiet.
Boxing Day 12:30.
They weren't quiet. Do you know what I think's happened? I think as time's gone by, the TV companies got wiser. They don't put the good games on at that time. They put the Burnleys and the Swanseas at home on, and those are going to be quiet. At 3 p.m, they're no picnic. They're no big festival of under the lights. But anyway, we digress. It was good. It was really, really good, and it was great to be back. Let's put it this way: I was singing throughout, but I'd lubricated for the occasion.
Josh, did you lubricate it for the occasion?
I had the night before, but to be honest, before the game, I'd only sort of had one very difficult pint in Taggies. My mate had bought me another one, and I was just like, I honestly don't think I can stomach it because I'd gone so heavy the night before. But once I got in there, you sort of get into the mood of it, don't you? I was actually in the rail seating in 306 as well, which was just like an unreal experience. And as the lads have said, I only noticed people singing for the entire game. I think one of them, like a Saturday 12:30 against Burnley, when it's pissing down with rain and there's people who've had ticketing issues and stuff outside, it sort of had all the hallmarks of a game, which shouldn't have been a good atmosphere. But when I first walked in, I was queuing outside for quite a while, so I only got in about a bar into You'll Never Walk Alone, but I was like within the bowels of Anfield as it started. So I just started filming on my phone because it was just like so vociferous. It was all you could hear as you walked up the stairs, and then there's loads of people like running past me and stuff, and then like comes out onto the Kop, and you just sort of like see the pitch and hear the noise. It's just absolutely unreal. It was I seen someone comment on our website over the weekend saying they've been a main stand season ticket holder for like tens of years, but it was like their first game all over again, and that's exactly how I felt. It was literally like going to your first game again, like seeing the green grass and hearing the supporters and stuff was just magical.
Yeah, and I ended up coming just as Walk Alone started because I had a bit of a ticket fund in games, not mine. It's sort of one I managed to sort with my father-in-law, so it was completely sort of it was out of anyone's hands really. While I ended ended up sort of being, close to home. But, I walked up the stairs and I managed to take a picture that ended up going out on our social, actually. And it was just that magical thing of seeing, the Kop in full flow. And as Ian beautifully put, you could tell he's a writer. The green was green and the red was red. And
I think I stole it from someone.
As all good writers do.
I mean, that's just what we're all doing all the time, aren't we? Someone says something clever. And,
talent borrows, genius steals. Stole that one as well. Can I just ask, what was the rail seating experience like?
It was really, really good, yeah. So, like, I was joking with my mates after because of my hangover and because of, 306 and the Kop is like its own climate. It was like standing in the sauna for the whole 90 minutes. I leant forward first half and then leant back second half. So I was like, I got the best of both worlds in terms of rail seating. I'm back on it in the second half, and I was leaning forward on it in the first half. But yeah, it was nice. And like I didn't sit down at any point, so you don't know sort of, because I know people worried about whether the rail would obscure views when you sat down and things like that. So I couldn't really answer them kinds of questions. But in terms of the actual standing experience, I feel like it only added to it. It made it feel a bit more like you were safer. And if it was to be a complete, big celebration in the fall, then you're not going over anywhere. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. In terms of the match itself then, Ian, Burnley actually started pretty well, to be fair, had a couple of sort of decent opportunities, and, you realise that they've come for sort of 3 points. It's a big day for them as well, but Liverpool, weathered it, and then first big chance to get go 1-0 up, and that's what top-class strikers do.
Completely. I think they came with the idea, slightly buoyed by the fact that obviously you haven't beaten us last year.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 years, I didn't even realise this till last night, but they've taken away, obviously, our unbeaten home record, but they also took away our chance of getting 100% home wins in the season before the league winning season. I'm trying to do history in my mind. 2 years of COVID. So they obviously came with the idea that they could do us again, and didn't realise that they were actually playing a proper Liverpool this time. They weren't playing the version that they played last year or this year or last time they were here, whenever that was. But they've got some handy players. You could see that, number 9, what's his name? Woods was getting purchased. McNeil was playing really well. Yeah. They've got some good footballers in that side. They've got good central defenders. And then as we settled into the normal routine, they just became the snidest version of Burnley you've ever seen. I thought they out-Burnleyed themselves throughout most of the games. They started well, they looked threatening, but then they resorted to all their usual tactics. Time wasting after a minute and a half is a new low from a goalie. But no, we people have pointed out at the time that we scored, we possibly don't deserve to be scoring, but that ball from Tsimikas, that cross, I mean, that lad was excellent on Saturday, and that cross for Jota is absolutely pinpoint. When you watch it back, Jota's movement to move from between, I think it was the centre-back and the left-back, just a little curl round between the two centre-backs to get between them. It's fantastic movement for a forward, that. Didn't do a great deal else in the half. It may have been the first time he touched the ball, for all I know, but it's a hell of a header. Lovely goal.
Yeah, it is a lovely goal, Rob. Jordan Henderson did a nice interview after the game, and he was talking about Jota, and he said he's got the magic touch, and that's sort of how it feels at the moment, doesn't he? He might be quiet in games, like Ian says, but just that little bit of movement to get away, and he only needs sort of one opportunity at the moment. He's a great asset for Liverpool.
He's a really unusual footballer, I think. Pep Lijnders is described him, didn't he, from the get-go as a pressing monster, and I think we're going to have to get used to this, because he's not getting a lot of touches on the ball in a centre-forward position, I think, quite a lot. I think if you play him wider, you might get more touches out of him because you need him more in the build-up. But he's uncanny in terms of his positioning. I mean, he scores a goal against Norwich, but obviously he could have had a hat-trick quite easily. I don't know what his XG would have been against Norwich, but he has one better headed opportunity, I think, against Norwich than he has against Burnley, and another one which comes at him quite quickly, I think. It's no fluke that he's getting in these positions, and that's just a real talent to be able to do that, to time your movement, to spot those things. He can score. He can outscore Salah this season. I'm quite confident of it if he becomes the first pick. Some people will say, but Bobby is going to give us a lot more. You're going to see a lot more touches on the ball. Yes and no is what I would say. I think Jota's not going to get credit for his pressing actions for that movement. So I don't like. There's a bit of a sort of rush to caveat how good he is, and I think he is sensational. I thought he was fantastic for Portugal in the summer. Watching him in a different context was illuminating. I thought look what he's doing for another team as well. I do like him off the left. I think just because you get to see him on the ball more, and he is very exciting on the ball. We didn't really get seeing any one of his sort of runs, did we, this weekend? But you did against Norwich, one of those where he got it and he just ploughs at people, and the only way of stopping him really when he's doing that is to foul him. Maybe we'll see more of that as the season goes on, but at the moment he's kind of undroppable unless you just want to rotate.
The most important thing is he's a 1 in 2 player. He's scoring one goal every other game.
Much more than that in minutes terms.
He's 15 and 32, but that's all.
But that's all appearances.
In terms of starts.
It's less than a game and a half his goal to game ratio.
That level's always been the absolute dream until obviously Haaland's reinvented the dream. But that's as good as you would ever want from a striker.
It's not. It's It isn't. I don't know what Haaland's goals per minute are. I know they're unreal, but Jota's at Liverpool are better than Mo Salah's, albeit Salah's is a much bigger sample, so it's not a fair comparison. But she shouldn't even be in the same ballpark. We've got another one of them, freaks of nature.
Yeah, I'm enjoying him, Josh. I'm enjoying him, grabbing that number 9 shirt. I'm glad Rob brought up the Portugal appearances because I watched them as well, and I was really impressed how he was. He sort of become their main man, really, and that's in a team with Ronaldo, albeit sort of an eventually fading one. But, you watch him in that and thinking, like, he's going out on that pitch thinking, like, it's, putting a lot on his shoulders he was doing for Portugal, and I was sort of, really, really impressed with that. And for us, he's gone from someone who I thought was coming in to be an option to someone who's very much a first-team player and is... is loving being at Liverpool and certainly loved scoring in front of a packed Kop.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, particularly when transfers happen, history seems to sort of get rewritten from the point they actually happen. I think people all of a sudden now look back and think that Jota was like a sure thing for Liverpool when they signed him. He wasn't. He was coming from Wolves with a lot of question marks. I think he'd been dropped by Espirito Santo like that season before he came. I think there was Wolves fans who had question marks about him in terms of attitude and things like that, which, when you see him playing for Liverpool now, you can't believe there was ever a question about his mentality. He just makes things happen, doesn't he, John? And you've referenced there for Portugal and for Liverpool, and one of the things that people have been able to throw at Bobby Firmino for so long, and I know you don't necessarily need to do the two thing between those two, but Rob mentions undroppable there, and Sadio Mane and Mo Salah are literally undroppable, so Firmino is naturally the one you sort of gravitate towards for a question mark around. And Bobby Firmino makes loads happen off the ball. He makes loads happen away from goal, but the problem is, as a number 9, sometimes you want someone who can make things happen loads more in front of goal. And Diogo Jota is just one of them people. As both the guys who mentioned there, it's his runs. Ian mentions the run for the header at the weekend. He just has a knack for getting in that right position at the right time. And when you've got lads like Tsimikas, like Trent, like Robertson, who can cross the ball the way they can, even throw Nico Williams into that, to be honest, the way they can cross the ball. You need lads like that who just pop up at the back post. We've seen it so much from Sadio Mane down the years, and now all of a sudden we've got another lad who can do that. And I tweeted out last week saying I genuinely think if he stays fit, he could score 20 in the league alone, and I've seen nothing so far to prove me wrong. Yeah,
we go 2-0 up. A little bit after that, Ian, unfortunately, it's ruled out for a marginal offside, although we have to say a correct one. It's such a shame because it's such a nice finish from Mo Salah, but also the ball from Harvey Elliott is exquisite, and he was in the game so much. I was so impressed with him, but I would have really liked that goal to stand as much for Mo as it was for Harvey.
I think VAR should be forced to take sheer beauty into account when it comes to goals, because that is one of the most gorgeous goals you're ever going to see. Because the intelligence, watching it back on Match of the Day, it's amazing how quick it was, because in the ground, Harvey Elliott had that ball at his foot for about a minute.
Yeah.
And he just took forever to release it. And it was the fact that he knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't a young player who was hesitating or dallying with the ball or getting caught on the ball. He was waiting for the exact right moment to release the ball. And that was a beautiful pass. And the finish is just, it's sumptuous. It's the typical Mo Salah finish. It's... I was pretty much in line with where Salah was when the ball was released, and he looked onside to me. But you see it back, and it is genuinely, he's got an entire foot in front of the last defender, so it is offside. But come on, you're making allowances for them kicking crap out of us. You might as well make allowances for us doing something wonderful.
I'm not sure. I've watched it again and again, and where they draw the lines, you go, it's marginally.
But where he releases the ball might not be.
Releases the ball, it's this faux forensics again, and I also thought, in the spirit of give the advantage, let's put it this way: pre-VAR, a good linesman who's in line with that gives that goal. He goes, they're level. That's fine.
Yeah, good linesman. We're talking the 70s then.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean, though. A linesman who gets calls right.
Yeah.
If you'd let's put it this way, you'd redone that one on Match of the Day, right, without VAR lines 2 years ago. You go, Lino got that right. Very tight, but Lino got it right. Because the spirit of it is he was level. And I thought with the thickened lines, they need to not be, I don't know what the technicalities on the thickness of nibs on pens are, but they need a proper big fucking magic marker. I was stunned when they said that. I know we're digressing onto the VAR controversy here, but you can't help yourself, can you? They talked about 20 goals that have been given back to the history of goals last season had we had the new system. It's fuck all that. It really is fuck all. It should be a damn sight more. We're meant to be favouring attacking play, and that didn't favour. And as you said, beauty is a thing. I know that shouldn't count for shit. But
that's what we watch the game for, isn't it? Unless you're like a Burnley fan, in which case you possibly just enjoy the kicking.
It was a fucking goal.
Yeah. Can I just say I enjoy the beauty and the kicking, if I'm allowed to do it.
Well, there's plenty of both. I mean, in terms of the Burnley tactics, Rob, it's... because you just mentioned there about this idea of, leeway and things like that. There's been an idea of referees letting more go this season, which I think is fair enough, but it seems to be suplexes that seems to be sort of one letting go. Also, to talk about Ian's points on time wasting, I saw a stat yesterday that the ball was in play just under 45 minutes in total.
Over 90?
Yeah, it averages around 60 for the Premier League game. The Liverpool-Burnley one was clocking in at 45. So we were robbed, in essence, of a third of a football match, and I'm all for letting things go, but the refs seem to be a little bit too far the other way in terms of some of their agricultural challenges.
Well, there's some contradictions there, right?
Yeah.
Because dealing with the first thing, I agree with you. He wasn't punishing really aggressive behaviour towards our players. That's absolutely right. But for me, maybe the bigger one, because it is a bugbear of mine, is deliberate time wasting as a tactic. It's just football has to deal with this. There's been mocking recently about the idea of fixed 30-minute halves with stopwatches involved. I would like that. Did some of the research you referenced there, John, about average of 60. I think 60 is the higher end of it, really. I think you sort of see 55s, and the research I saw showed that Stoke, Burnley, you could absolutely guess who, have balls in play in their games for 50, 51 minutes. So they're the bottom of it. That's not good tactical play. People go, I don't disapprove of any style of football. I don't either. Someone wants to play ridiculous Watford style 80s long ball, hoof it. I don't care how agricultural they want to be or simplistic in their tactical approach. That's fair enough. Or defensive even. Whatever it takes tactically to win a football game, you can do it within the rules. But it is not in the rules to take the piss, time-wasting wise. And referees are incapable of dealing with it. I mean, you could see in the first half, Burnley were at it from minute one. And, they weren't just doing fouling our lads. They were rolling around themselves. The keeper was taking the piss. Every throw-in took too long. And I said to people next to me, I said, they'll add 1 minute half time on, because that's virtually de rigueur in the Premier League. Maybe 2 if we're very, very lucky. But I started stopping my watch just because I was getting wound up about it. I only kept it up for about over a 5 minute spell. I said, there's 45 seconds just there. And I think it was a throw in or something. They fucked around with
How long? The VAR must have been a minute.
Well, there you go. Exactly. Well, the VAR, exactly.
We get 2 minutes of time added on, and VAR is a minute of that at the very least.
So there's no way it wasn't 4 or 5 minutes.
And then lad lying down in the box holding his head as if he'd been smacked in the face.
Yeah. Well, the proof of the pudding is it was 45 minutes, as John said. 45 minutes was dicked away there. Mm-hmm. We should have had, when the board came up on 90, it should have been for 40 minutes.
So we could punish them.
I just think it's one of those things that winds me up in football beyond belief. And, I'm not saying it should be a 90-minute game, but it should at least be a 60-minute game.
Yeah, in terms of the fouling as well, Josh, Harvey Elliott got a lot of that. He was fouled 5 times in the game, which was more than any other Liverpool player. They obviously thought, we'll try and target this little fella, but he just kept bouncing up, didn't he?
He was just, he was riding tackles like nothing else. It was unreal, really, in terms of the maturity he showed, because I think in those moments, particularly as a young lad, when you know that a team is deliberately targeting you and they're being a bit more physical, it must be really easy to just lose your head and be like, if you're not particularly experienced in the game, you're not sort of used to being tackled the way that Burnley players will tackle you like that. I think you could be prone to losing your head, but it speaks volumes about Harvey Elliott and the player and the person that he is, that he didn't do that. I seen somebody tweet over the weekend, and I quite enjoyed it, actually, sort of saying like, there's no real problem with the Burnley players getting physical, because it's basically what you expect from Burnley. And also, if we want the refs to be a bit more lenient and let a few more things go, then it's going to be part and parcel of the game again. But the problem I had was that as Rob said there, they were rolled around all over the place as well. And Chris Wood was laid down in our box for ages, holding his head when there was nothing wrong with him, and all these kinds of things. It's like, lads, if you're going to be more physical, then sound, be more physical. But if we're physical back to you, then you can't just be rolling around all over the gaff and stuff like Liverpool players weren't doing. They were getting up and getting on with it. So I think that was the thing that frustrated me the most. But as you mentioned there, John, in terms of Harvey Elliott's performance, I think that was completely summed up in the way that he was dealing with that treatment by Burnley players. Because, as I said before, it had been so easy to lose your head, but then also it'd been so easy to let it affect the way you were playing football, to flick a pass away quickly when you didn't want to get twatted by some grok again. But he wasn't doing that. He was holding on to the ball. He was taking Burnley players on. I think it was probably the last foul on him, because it was quite late in the game. He was like running into the Burnley half down the centre, and he tried to Maradona around one of the lads, and their lad just absolutely cleaned him out. But then Harvey got up and shook Jordan Henderson's hand and stuff, and I just thought, that's absolutely unreal. It was probably the 5th time he'd been fouled heavily in the game. I think
that one as well, he ends up with a Burnley player on top of him. Exactly. And it wasn't even the one who fouled him.
Exactly, and then he's still trying to Maradona around, lads. We've got a serious player on our hands there. I'm so excited to watch his journey as a Liverpool player.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to watch his journey as well, Ian. And you could see him growing in confidence all the time. Him, but also his teammates. There was a stat after the game that he got the 3rd most touches from a Liverpool player after Trent and Henderson. And when you think about how much we look to get Trent on the ball, and obviously the position that Jordan was on the pitch, the fact he's 3rd after those, it says a lot about his confidence. But as I say, also the confidence of his teammates. I felt by the end, Mo Salah was looking to get him on the ball as much as he could.
You can see at the beginning, from the very start of the game, coming out from the back, we were playing it short to him to give him the chance to run. Do you want to get onto the actual the goal that he's involved in now, or do you want to wait for a while?
If you must,
there's a really nice thing, and I think it might be indicative of something we're going to do a lot. Because the way he takes ball, obviously he takes ball on his chest brilliantly, as somebody said on the pink, because I'm still calling it the pink, I don't care what anybody else says. Most players would have nodded it down the line to the guy in front of them, but there isn't a guy in front of him. He's taking on his chest and he moves in, because him being that wide has given Trent the chance to move inside. And this shout that everyone's had for years of move Trent into midfield, well, you just did. He's just moved into midfield of his own volition, because Harvey Elliott's out on the right taking that wide position he'd normally have, and that gives Salah the chance to move in from the side. So his positional sense is fantastic, his strength, just his control of the ball. But the biggest thing is his in-game intelligence. He's such an intelligent footballer. He's going to take Jack Grealish's mantle of being the most foul player in the Premiership, because people are going to target him immediately, just like Burnley did. He's going to be targeted. He's going to have one of those seasons where people will try to take him, and I think he'll ride everything. I think, honest to God, I think the lad has got absolutely everything. He's such an exciting player to watch. I think we're seeing the start of a career. He could be, genuinely, at my age, he could still be playing for Liverpool when I hit my 70s. And that's a fantastic thing to think. It's quite depressing being that old.
Something to look forward to, though, isn't it?
Just before you go, Rob, just because Ian mentioned there about his average starting position, and video subscribers, look out for the shape today, which I'm recording, which I'm sure will focus on this. But Harvey Elliott, just how wide he was on that right hand side, but also how far forward. Harvey Elliott was wide right, but further forward than Trent. And now people who will be on this type of thing will know that, generally speaking, our fullbacks are far more advanced than our midfielders in the team. But Harvey Elliott was more advanced than both Chimikas and Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of average position, but also right on the right hand side. So trebling off, if you like, with Trent and Mo Salah, and they couldn't deal with it. Apologies, Rob.
No, that's really interesting, that, because nominally he's in a triangle where him and Keita are 2 8s and Henderson's behind them at the base.
But wider rates.
But yeah, well, I think Naby's more tucked in. I don't know how I've got the heat map. I'm sure he's more tucked in. He's
almost alongside Jordan Henderson, so we're almost playing with 2 6s.
So it's not. It is a 4-2-4 of sorts more there. I think if we're honest, I mean, there's very fine lines sometimes looking at these formations and 4-2-3-1. Is that a 4-2-4? Whatever. I think you've got, to my mind, I think Harvey. The Grealish comparisons is a good one, Ian. I think as a midfield player, I think there's a lot in common there. Obviously, he's not Grealish's level yet. Give him till January, but he'll be 100. He won't be worth £100 million by January. I think, minimum. But I would like to get him as far forward as possible. Mo Salah may have to move inside. I just think, and the partnership between them has been referenced, is very, very exciting. I used to worry that when, say you first watched him a couple of years ago, that he's got all the tools, but can he be quick and explosive like Salah if he's going to be Salah's heir apparent?
He's not got speed.
But I think over 10 yards he's got all the speed he needs, quite frankly. I think so, yeah. I just think he's very, very explosive. I think as he gets stronger, and you look at his body shape for a boy that young, it's sort of Rooney-esque. I think he's still got a good bit of filling out to do, and he has already filled out. I think he's going to be an absolute, a unit is a bit strong because he's a small boy, but I think he's going to be very, very difficult to knock off a football. And I think
2 years ago it looked like he was possibly a little bit lightweight and he could be knocked off the ball at that point. But
this is what I'm getting at. So I think once you're strong and you've got intent, that's like speed. You know what I mean? If you're slight and you've got to push a ball past and get round a man, that's harder. I don't think he has to get round a man. I think he's going to be able to knock people over. But I'd like to see him getting fouled in the box. Because I think you know what I mean? Well, the reason Salah isn't as fouled as Jack Grealish is because Salah is in the penalty area, right? Jack Grealish does his work 35 yards from goal a lot of the time. You're going to get taken out there. That's the sweet spot of stopping attacks. Harvey, just get him in the team at the moment. We were saying before we came on air, me and you, Josh, I think now, people are going to say, well, obviously you have to pull him out against Chelsea, and I wouldn't complain if he got pulled out against Chelsea, but I also see a case for keeping him in. I think sometimes when you've got a young talent in your team that's this obvious, you've just got to fucking run with it. We did with Michael Owen. I think Michael Owen would have done what he'd have done regardless, but I wouldn't have liked him being dropped in for 2, taken out for 8, dropped in for 1, taken out for 5. I'd like to see Harvey Elliott play 2 out of every 3 for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I'm worried if I'm Oxlade-Chamberlain. This is what me and Rob were sort of talking about briefly before the show. Obviously, I think Chamberlain would have played at the weekend if Perry wasn't literally giving birth. But I think if I'm watching that game and I'm Oxlade-Chamberlain, I'm going, I know I didn't play great against Norwich, and I think he'll know that, because I think Oxlade-Chamberlain's always been his own biggest critic as well, which has sort of helped and hindered him in sort of equal measure. But I think he'd been watching that and would have seen how Harvey played and seen the reaction to it as well, and been a bit like, shit, my position could be under threat here because this kid. And there's that anecdote this morning which is broken as well. I'm trying to remember who to credit, because James Pearce and Melissa Reddy have both written a piece about Harvey Elliott, and one of them's come up with the anecdote of he was allowed 6 weeks off this summer, and he cut it short after a fortnight because he wanted to get himself into Liverpool first team this summer, and that for me says absolutely everything about him. As I said before, I think he's going to be a top player. Yeah,
absolutely. Just before we go on to talk about a few more incidents in the second half, I'm interested to get your opinions on Keita, because he plays a deeper role, as we've talked about a little bit there. We had a bit of a debate on the Pink about how we thought we played. It was 2 each, I think it was. So since then I've sort of changed my opinion a little bit based on what I've seen back. But what did you make of him, Rob?
I think people have a confirmation bias issue a little bit with Naby, in that you'd written him off, or they were really, really wanting to see him prove people wrong. And I'm in the latter camp, so I have to declare that up front, right? And I listened to you on the Pink, and you weren't having him, were you? And I thought, oh, John, no way! Right? It was my first. And I'm generally happy. I thought he was good against Norwich. I thought he was excellent. I don't know what his numbers look like. I haven't watched it back, but in game, he gave me a great deal of confidence. People going, he got lost possession. No, he didn't really. There was one bit where they all got pressed a bit, and it was very difficult to come out. So I think he got pressed from 2 yards. He didn't lose possession in the classic sense of losing possession. But there were some lovely touches as well. There was a bit where we were hemmed in on our left in the first half, and he just managed to just flick one round the corner to Jordan Henderson, who was like 5 yards to his right when there were bodies in the way. And I thought that took such skill. There was a quote, I think, from Virgil van Dijk in pre-season where he threw everyone this curveball, but by going, well, the most talented player in our squad is Naby Keita, of course. And everyone went, well, what? Who? But you watch him close up, especially in the flesh, maybe more so than on telly, and you go, that technique is something special. Yeah. You do always feel like he's holding something within him, because you think, if you could let go of all that's there, Jesus, what a player. He'd be the ceiling. That's why the potential still remains massive. And he keeps his place for me.
What do you make of him, Ian?
Unlike Rob, I had written him off very vocally. In fact, I'd written him off last season. I thought it was time to sell him. I didn't see any point having a player who we can never get on the pitch, but the last 2 games, pre-season and the last 2 games, and specifically yesterday, his contribution, sorry, not yesterday, Saturday, that's how the weekend has been. Saturday, his contribution was excellent. He was intelligent, he was controlled, he was doing basically, I thought, very much sort of the Wijnaldum role, where he's controlling the game and yet playing within himself, but the intelligence he's got, it's... when he's got the ball up on the left, and this is why I was thinking of him as more of a wide 8, because it's the one that stuck with me most. When he's got the ball on the left and he's just holding it on the box and holding it, it's just a little sideways back heel dink to Tsimikas for the cross. It's because he knows exactly what's about to happen, and he was aware of that. And it was if you're expecting him to be an explosive player, he wasn't that. I think we've always thought of him, he's going to be this explosive player who's going to do this incredible stuff. And no, he kept everything ticking, kept everything moving, and he was a calm, controlled presence in the midfield. And I thought he had a really good game.
Where were you, Josh?
So I'm somewhere between the 2 camps that Rob suggested, because I've tried to sort of take myself out of the argument and be a bit more objective about it. And I thought he was really good against Norwich, and I thought he was just fine at the weekend. Would be my sort of overall thing on it, which I know is not gonna whet some people's appetites, because they'll want me to say he's shite or that he was really good. I just thought he was fine. I think he carries the ball well. He gets the hockey assist for Tsimikas for the Jota goal as well, where he is sort of wider on the left at that point, and then Tsimikas runs round the back of him, and he does the little flick to him, which sends the Burnley defenders for a Mickey as well. So I think I was all right with his performance. I felt like he filled his purpose of what Klopp would want him to fill, and that's always, I think, been the issue with Naby Keita, is that Jurgen Klopp clearly really rates him as a player, and I think there's an extent to which Jurgen Klopp will feel like he wants Naby to succeed even more, because he's almost like he has really bet on him. And I think Naby Keita, every time he's come in, everyone's been really impressed by, against Crystal Palace when he sent Andros Townsend and things like that. The sort of highlight plays everybody wants to see out of Naby Keita. He's probably not going to bring them every single game, but there's going to be some games where he just does a job for Jurgen Klopp. And against Norwich, I thought he was more in the form of that, but against Chelsea, I thought he was very much in the latter. I was happy with his performance.
Yeah, I watched it back yesterday, and he played better than sort of I remember, really. I think straight after the game, sometimes certain incidents sort of stick in your head, didn't you? And there was one where I think he tries to dribble it out on the edge of the area and gets sort of tackled, or maybe he's trying to play a pass. First half. And I think around that time, do you know what? I think I was just genuinely more nervous than I expected to be. Like, I've spent a year going, it's hard to watch it on telly. Well, at least when you're ground, you feel like you can affect anything. And then suddenly I don't know, maybe I was just a bit overstimulated, and I was just genuinely a bit worried that we didn't have enough control in midfield, is what I was like, and we were sort of missing maybe a Thiago in there and stuff. I was calling for Thiago as soon as I remembered he was on the bench, to be honest with you. And then when you watch it back last night, knowing it was 2-0, you're like, oh no, we were fine. What was I on about? So I think it was generally a mix of my nerves, my emotions, and being sort of a bit overstimulated about other things. But he was much more in control of everything than the sort of maybe I give him credit for. But yeah, he's certainly got the shirt on merit at the moment, and I would expect him to keep it against Chelsea. Okay, we're going to the second half. They start the second half really well. Josh, I don't know whether being in the Kop, your favourite thing of the whole day was Ashley Barnes scoring, giving the big one to the Kop, and then it getting disallowed.
It was.
I wish it had gone on longer. I wish it had. The lines were just flagged a little bit too soon for me. Is my only criticism.
It was quite funny watching it back on Match of the Day, because in the ground, like it's a bit out of body, isn't it? Really, like especially when an incident happens, you act on instinct rather than anything else. So I just remember shouting until my face turned blue and until my voice went, as you can probably hear right now, when Ashley Barnes ran through, because like he scores, and then you're almost like and then you see that the linesman's flagged and he's behind him, and Ashley Barnes is just going up for the celebration as the linesman puts his flag out. So instantly we're all shouting back to him, knowing the goal's been disallowed, but he's still celebrating at us, and then he just sort of gives it fuck off to all of us. But it was absolutely unreal. Like, everyone was just shouting stuff at him for minutes after that as well. It was a top moment, and I'm a big fan of those like little shithouse moments as well. Like, fair play to Ashley Barnes for getting stuck in, and fair play to the Kop as well for giving it the big one back.
I give some really big V's to the Burnley end, Rob.
I did. I haven't done that for a while. Do you know what I mean? Well, obviously,
because we're the opposite end from Josh. We didn't get the cop thing of being able to give it to him. But yeah, the Burnley end went berserk as the right.
I was more at old school wanker signs. Was my weapon of choice.
I was big V's.
After we scored, I was giving it to them like they did. I think they'd done this as a library, didn't they? In their Cockney accents from Burnley. They did, yeah. It's been a while since I felt that urge. I like that in a game when it gets a bit sort of fucking febrile.
It means something, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what? I went wild at the first goal, like I felt like I did at Norwich, and the TV can attest to this. Right. But when that one got disallowed, it really knocked me back to the middle of last season, where I stopped being able to celebrate goals again. I just really hated that. Yeah. I hated that. I don't know. I don't want to, again, I'm not going to start the VAR thing again, but I need to have a lot of goals not ruled out for a good while for my sanity. Just going to put that out there.
Well, the second goal, I was still waiting for the VAR to kick it
so was
away.
I.
Kicked off again.
I'd completely forgotten when the Salah goal. Like, I forgot VAR was even a thing. To be honest, I quite enjoyed that. I quite enjoyed just like having that moment of delirium. I think like people are too worried about being right about things in football and celebrating at the right moment kind of thing. I just think a celebration is nice no matter what. Like I always think
the TV, Josh. It's the TV that's different. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, no.
Because when you're watching, because I found in the year we had off, or a year and a half watching it on telly, the TV goes to VAR immediately. In terms of, it does, and I've said this on short before. It goes when a goal goes in, it more or less goes whoa. It puts you on the edge. Is it going to be allowed or not? We don't know. VAR. Every single goal I noticed last season was when you're in the ground, you're oblivious to it, and it's only then there becomes this rumour about 30 seconds later. They're saying VAR's being checked, and then you turn over and goes, "What size does it say VAR?"
And the scoreboard flashes around.
To say that. so you're not as connected to that process, and you almost think if I don't look at the VAR thing, it's not going to be one of them. Do you know what I mean? So I think you're not anxious on like most goals.
See, I'm a weirdo. I just love the journey of a football game. Like I always talk about like forgotten let-offs, and Sadio Mane in Kiev is one of my favourite celebrations of all time, even though what the sort of context what happens in the game, because I just do sort of love that journey of football, that there are going to be lows and there are going to be highs, and I'm not always asked about being right about football. I'd rather have celebrated that Mo Salah goal than been stood there the whole time going, watch out lads, VAR might rule this out. I just got carried away in the moment and was dancing around the aisles and hugging people, so I wasn't bothered that it got disallowed at that very moment, and then obviously until it got disallowed then I was like,
this is a philosophical issue. This is about is a taste of honey worse than none at all, as Smokey Robinson talked about. No, and you see that it's not about being right, not celebrating, it's just not wanting to have that wrenched from you. You're almost better folding your arms, go, that'll never be a goal, that's not a goal in a million years. He goes, what, it's a goal?
Well, we all got to celebrate the second one anyway, Rob, and it's some goal indeed. It's Liverpool at the best. I noticed Sean Dyche did an interview after the game where he basically admitted that for 20 minutes in the second half Liverpool were unplayable, and I thought we were right on at that point creating chances, but I kept saying to everyone around me, we need to score when we're on top here, we need to score when we're top, and then we do eventually sort of get that second goal. I thought for that 15-20 minutes Sean Dyche was right. Liverpool were just sumptuous and very much at our best, and it's topped by a brilliant goal that gets better every time you watch it.
Yeah, I'm slightly resentful that we didn't get the 4-0 kind of that puts a stamp on that before, because you're right, we were totally dominant in that second half, and it is a ridiculous goal. I was thinking back, you can watch most goals and you go, well, I could find one in 1984 that looked a bit like that goal. Okay, it might not have been as fast in terms of the approach play, or the pitch might have looked terrible, but you can see this type of shot. Let's put it this way, you'll find videos of Kenny Dalglish bending them in the top corner that are not dissimilar to the way Mo Salah could do. There's a lot of techniques that are there, but there's something about the way Sadio takes that. I know it feels like he can do that, and it's not a hard finish for him, but it is a ridiculously smooth, just technically perfect piece of finishing.
It's the off-balance thing, isn't it?
He's leaning back. It's balletic the way he takes it. Nobody finishes like that. I mean, that's without, before we even start about, we've touched on Harvey Elliott's chest controlling a 50-yard landing cannonball as if it's a piece of cotton wool. Having a little look, slotting it inside, and then Trent's clip. That's all it is into Sadio. It's a perfectly weighted clip, and without the weighting of that, it doesn't allow Sadio to do what is the most textbook kind of finish you could do in a coaching manual of how to finish, getting your body weight right, getting exactly the right part of your foot through a ball. It's just a glorious goal.
Yeah, it's a glorious goalie, and it was a beauty to watch live, and it was, back in the ground seeing that, what a gift first up they gave us.
It's honest to God, that was, as moments go, that is the one I celebrated and thought, well, they're going to take this away from us because that's just too good a goal. They're going to take it away just to upset us. But it's perfect. I mean, Virgil's ball, everybody was commenting as we come now, that's what we missed last season. We didn't even realise we were missing it at the time. We just thought we were missing a defender. But what we were missing was the long diagonals. He can basically pinpoint in order to completely change a game in 1 second. That's genius. But Harvey Elliott's control, the way he took that ball, also the way Tsimikas was taking diagonal balls all afternoon as well, his control was excellent. But Elliott to chest that down, to have the presence of mind to do that, to take a little run, and then Trent, as you said, it's the most perfectly way to clip your runs. It's the goal you want to see scored. It's what football's for. That moment where you can just change everything with something that's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and impossible to cope with, Josh. And a shout for Sadio Mane as well. There's a stat saying he's the fifth Liverpool player to score 50 Premier League goals at Anfield. And I'm not mad on the Premier League era sort of stats and things, but if you look at the other 40 joins, it's Robbie Fowler, Steven Gerrard, Michael Owen and Mo Salah, and I think it is worth it for that, just to show that's the company that he's in now. Do you know what I mean? Well, has been pretty much since he joined, to be fair, in terms of his numbers, in terms of what he's doing. He's up there with the elite forwards we've had in the last 30 years.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I ruffled a few feathers after the Bayern Munich away game, because I said on Talking Reds that he's better than John Barnes, which was a joke. I should point out I haven't seen John Barnes play, so it'd be absolutely impossible for me to comment on. But I can't imagine that there's many Liverpool players who have been better than Sadio Mane. I've certainly not seen them in my lifetime in terms of left-sided of the three players coming in off the right. He's just remarkable, isn't he? He makes everything look so easy. Like Rob said there, that goal is one where he's off balance. The ball from Trent is perfectly weighted, but it's still a ball coming through the air. The keeper's approaching. There's so much to think about around you. There's a defender just off his left shoulder, and he just takes it with such aplomb. And Sadio is a player that I love in particular because he's a very relatable human being. I find he gets really down on himself when there are low moments, and he absolutely soaks up the high moments to such great effect as well. And I felt a bit sorry for him after the Norwich game, because I know how much when all the rest of the lads score, how much he'd have wanted to score as well. So I was really particularly pleased that he got that goal against Burnley, and that it was such a beauty. The only shame, as Rob said, was that we couldn't make it more. I was walking out the ground and kept having to ask Fuad, was that 2-0? Because it felt like it was 3 or 4 or 5-0, that in terms of the way that Liverpool played for the majority of it, in terms of the goals that Liverpool scored, it felt like VAR must have disallowed us a few extra ones in there because I was convinced we'd won by more. But I don't think I'll be having to worry about us winning by many big scorelines this season, because I think with Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, Jota, Firmino, Harvey Elliott, all of them, I think we'll be doing that a lot.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame, isn't it, Rob, as you said, that it's not quite the 4-0, but it's a great start for Liverpool. We've won our first 2 games, we've not conceded a goal, we've scored 5, or 4 of our forwards have got goals. There's other good performances as well, there's players to come back. It was really nice to see a nice cameo from Thiago, who thought looked really good and has found himself in the ring for maybe a Chelsea start. It's all positive at Liverpool, isn't it? And you see in other teams who've been maybe hyped more, dropping points already, but Liverpool are just going about the business pretty well.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like the positivity and the encouragement of pre-season has bled or blurred into this start. This, to an extent, it almost feels like an extended pre-season, maybe because we had 2 Anfield friendlies as well, but only in the best possible sense. These were always, we were always bankers for these 6 points, but there's a difference between that being the case and getting them, and I think we've got them with the minimum fuss really as well. And I think we've hit in. People will go, yeah, they were professional performances, would be the broadest media analysis of them. But I think they were a little bit more than that. I think there were parts of those games, as we just referenced, like the 20 minutes of the second half, where Liverpool were really exciting. And you can see how this gets better and better. The encouraging thing is I was on a WhatsApp group with some old school friends from back home where I was raised in London, and they're Spurs fans. And we've had this discussion, I know, in other shows about. They were thinking Liverpool are very much good, but third placed behind Chelsea and City in terms of title prospects. And their argument was, yeah, you don't have the strength and depth, do you? Which, I was pointing out was a lazy cliche, and it really has been exposed as that, I think. And, touch wood that we're not going to have any a terrible injury crisis, because that exposes every squad as thin when you have the one to the degree we had last season. But you look at You look at Norwich, and I said to them, we beat Norwich with something to spare there, 3-0, without Thiago, Henderson and Fabinho in midfield. That speaks to our options in midfield. It just shows what talent we got. We've craved a fifth attacker, I think, haven't we, all summer? All the transfer gutter shows that we've been doing. We've got Jota as sort of who could augment the traditional front three. We've got Harvey Elliott now. We're putting him in midfield because we need to get him games. But he is a front three player still. He's still more than capable. He's looking like he can be a genuine option. I mean, it's another week to go. The transfer window, we might sign yet another player. We've gone all summer, God, we've got to replace Gini Wijnaldum's minutes. And then you go, well, Naby Keita, when, he's fit. He's fit. Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's a good player. We've even seen Minamino become an option. We see Thiago coming back. Henderson missed the last quarter of the season. That's been the encouraging thing as much as the actual results, is just seeing the depth of the squad in action.
Yeah, 100% agree with that, Ian. And also we need to give a shout out to the defence as defenders, because they haven't conceded a goal yet. And Alisson, has shown his class when we've needed him to. The two centre halves who, hadn't played a competitive game of football between them since, in 2021. I forgot what year it was then. I did what you did before. So both of them to come back in, with no sort of competitive minutes for a long time, and to be impeccable, exactly, just shows a lot, really. And we haven't conceded a goal yet, and that's a lot of that's down to those three. Yeah,
I think there's this idea of I've been, along with other people, I'd have liked to see a sign of midfield this season. I'd like to see.
We still might, Ian. We still
could, but the idea of us not having any strength and depth is patently ludicrous, because if you look at it and go, okay, well, there's a few names for you: Shaqiri, Fabinho, Origi, Milner, a couple more, Oxlade-Chamberlain. There's 5 who weren't even in the 20 yesterday. And we had 2 goalies on the bench yesterday, but you can still only play 3 subs. You're only allowed the 3 subs. It's not a big deal. So we had 20 lads, and there's those 5 that weren't even present. Obviously, one of them's now gone. But that idea that people are saying that, all these pundits who are saying Liverpool can't finish. Liverpool finish 4th because Virgil van Dijk won't be fit to play every single game. Virgil van Dijk was out from October last year and we finished 3rd. Now we've got him back. How do we become suddenly worse? It's lazy, cliche.
And ahead of Chelsea, by the way. Ahead of Chelsea.
Ahead of Chelsea, yeah. Ahead of Chelsea. And it's blindness on other people's parts that we have somehow become weaker. As somebody said on Twitter yesterday, we are still the team that won 26 games out of 27 at the beginning of 2019-2020. And to that, we've added Thiago, Jota, Canate. We've got a £36 million centre-back who's sitting on the bench at the moment and hasn't made his full debut for us. We've got Harvey Elliott. We don't know what Kai Gordon's going to be doing this season. He could be doing more than we think. We've got a huge amount of actual options available to us, as long as we don't have an equivalent of the most catastrophic season of injuries that anyone's ever had. Last season was unreal for injuries. We're also saying, as you just said, people are saying that we're kind of like, we're okay, we're doing well, we've won the games, but we should win the games, and we're doing well. 2 years ago we were sitting here going, well, we're winning the games, but we're doing it in like 20-minute bursts, and it's mostly efficient, but we're winning. It's mostly efficient, but we're winning. And we did that for 27 weeks. And let's do it again.
Let's do it again, indeed. Okay, I want to finish on a few newsy pieces. One story that's breaking right now, which is interesting because it's something that Rob mentioned to me just before we started at Hampton, but there's some breaking news on that. I want to talk a little bit about Shaqiri as well, and I want to talk a little bit ahead to Chelsea because it is absolutely a massive game. Just before we want to do that, I just want to give everyone a nudge on our partners from the weekend, which is Football Prizes. They've got a fantastic bundle of Liverpool goods that you can win. So if you just go to footballprizes.co.uk/product /LFC-bundle. We'll tweet that out today as well. But a fantastic range of prizes, including a Virgil van Dijk signed and framed shirt. It is drawn Tuesday the 24th at 7:30. So hurry up if you want to get your tickets in for that. So this breaking news then, Rob. Just before we started, you said to me, "Have you heard this red zone stuff?" And I said, "I haven't, Rob." And you filled me in on it. There was quite a few number of Liverpool players who maybe would have had to isolate coming back from international break. I hadn't heard too much about it. But it is an ongoing story. And Neil Jones, sometimes of this parish, has tweeted at 11:30 today, Liverpool have refused to let Mo Salah join the Egypt squad for the forthcoming games with Angola and Gabon due to concerns over COVID. That's interesting. He might not be the only one. But it's good to see Liverpool being firm on it.
Well, yeah, the story that was sort of surfacing towards the tail end of last week was that the Brazilian contingent, so Fabinho, Firmino, Alisson, would, because they were travelling to red zone countries and playing 3 games in the space of about 8 days as well, would have to quarantine for best part 10 days. And I think the Daily Mirror ran with a story that they and Salah, who was also going to a red zone country, would miss Palace at home. Sorry, Leeds away initially, the first Champions League game, and Palace at home. So that's 3 games that they would all miss due to having to quarantine. Now, obviously, Liverpool, they formally now said they're not releasing Salah. I think that might be because
basically
they're not FIFA competitions.
Egypt. He's not been named in the squad, so Egypt have come out and said that Salah's not in the squad, and have said why, and have said it's because Liverpool have refused. So the information has come from the Egyptian FA. So it's about as official as it gets.
Well, there might be an agreement between them then, because FIFA rules say players have to release. I think the Brazils are all World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, these are friendlies, so it's
so there
different.
You go. So that's why he's been singled out. The Brazil one is, good, that's really good news, that. But the Brazil one is particularly irking because our 3 boys aren't first picks for Brazil. So the likelihood is that they'll be going out there to be squad players. They may, they barely get half an hour each out there over the course of 3 games, and yet we lose them for 3 full matches. I don't know if other clubs are in the same boat. I would have thought a fair compromise for Brazil is maybe keep them for the first 2, and at least, maybe they miss a game or 2 from us rather than the first 3. If I was Klopp, I'd be having serious words with these boys about throwing in an injury or 2 here, Alex Ferguson style, because especially for the keeper. Actually, that's not for all of them. Fabinho barely played a minute in the Copa in the summer, and Alisson barely played, I think. It's madness to make them travel around the world and then miss out, on key games. Salah, I can imagine he'd been raging, so thank God this has been reversed. So you'll miss 2 Premier League games and a Champions League game when you're a Golden Boot chasing merchant. You are not going to take that lightly. So that's, I'm just going to celebrate that news for now.
Yeah, well, we'll celebrate away. We'll watch the space on that one. The story is obviously developing. Maybe faster we can get this out, so we'll leave it on that. But the other bit of news, Ian Salmon talked about it before, Josh, is that looks like Shaqiri is on his way. Just under £10 million. They've sort of got in for him. I guess only 12 months left on his contract, so sort of reduces it a little bit. It's a shame to see him go. Obviously, he really wants to go, and Liverpool Football Club have a policy that, if players do want to leave, they'll and give them plenty of notice, which he appears they have, that they'll try and facilitate that. So, a little bit of a shame, partly because I really liked watching him play football, but we'll have some boss memories of him indeed.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I mentioned about Diogo Jota before as being a player who makes things happen, and I think that Shaqiri came with his critics, didn't he? Particularly from sort of Stokes way. Neil Atkinson to name but one. But and he had his critics during his time at Liverpool as well. I think Jurgen Klopp was probably one of the biggest critics of Shaqiri because he probably didn't fit Liverpool's overall defensive shape in terms of the way that Liverpool like to transition. But as you say, the moments will always stick out. And I sort of jumped on the Anfield Wrap's Twitter last night when it was happening and was sharing a few of the moments. And you realise actually like how many he has. Like people were tweeting back the one against West Ham where it's just his assist for a Salah goal, but it's just one of the most beautiful Liverpool counter-attacking goals, and it was Shaqiri right at the heart of it with like it wasn't quite a half volley because I think the ball had pretty much stopped, but it was bouncing over to him, and then just first time flicks it round the corner to Salah. He was a sumptuous player to watch on his day, and I will miss him. He was just one of the funniest, maddest little fellas I think who's ever played for Liverpool. And as you say, you can't. When you sort of look back on your career or your journey following football, you will think of the big moments that you watched playing, watched supporting Liverpool, and Jurgen Shaqiri had all big moments playing for Liverpool. He won 4 trophies. He played in Champions League finals where he sets up crucial goals. He scored big goals. He got Jose Mourinho sacked by Manchester United. He goes with our absolute best wishes, and hopefully he absolutely tears it up for Lyon as well. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, his Liverpool career might not have got exactly how he wants to Ian in terms of number of games and things like that, but in terms of things won and big nights, I'm sure he'll look back at his Liverpool career really, really fondly.
He's got better memories than most players ever get, hasn't he? It's the 2 crosses against Barcelona. the 2 goals against United. He's actually changed things. He's made things happen, and not many players get to say that kind of thing. As you said, he's basically won everything that you could win in a single season that's worth winning. So, yeah, I think he's been great. I think, we haven't seen him on the pitch often enough, and he clearly, he disappeared for a long stretch because of injury, and when he wasn't injured, there were times when Klopp didn't trust him to do the job, but it's the moments, and you only remember moments. You don't remember 90 minutes. You never remember a 90-minute game. You remember the moments, and he's given us loads of those. Yeah,
but Rob, as host of the award-winning Gutter, I need to ask you, what does this all mean? Because I think it's a low fee for Shaqiri. Even with the fact that I said before there's 12 months to go, I still think, I'd be looking at that, and if I really wanted to use Shaqiri, thinking I'd rather just keep him and let him go for free. So I have the theory that they're letting him go a little bit cheap because they want that spot.
Yes, I don't think it's too bad a fee. It's basically what we paid for him as well.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's a shocking fee or something, but I'm saying they could have played a bit more hardball and got that up a bit higher if they wanted to, or said, we'll just keep you for sort of 12 months and use. I think there's this thing, isn't it, with how many spots you're allowed in the squad and things like that. I think they're prepared to let 1 or 2 million go that they could have got a bit more hardball just to get that spot.
I think they've played hardball to get there, because the opening bid was 4 million apparently.
Yeah.
So.
I think they have. I mean, 2 things can be true. I think, yes, they did need to get him out the door, potentially. I mean, they've briefed all summer long, Liverpool, haven't they, that don't be expecting us to sign anyone, certainly from outside the Premier, who isn't English, because of this regulation that you've got a certain quota of non-Premier League players or youth players in your squad. So Liverpool has sort of been briefing journalists that they're not signing anyone until that space has been created, which is sort of a new twist on their we can't buy until we've sold some lads, which they did the previous summer. Which wasn't really true, because they then signed Jota and Thiago, and they spent 70 million in a week before. Okay, they got money back then through Brewster, but what have you. So I sort of do and don't believe that theory, and it might open up that they sign someone and it'll be, yep, we did tell you this all along. I think the fee itself isn't bad. It's virtually, it's 9.5 million reportedly. I think the problem with Shaqiri's value is and the problem with his entire Liverpool career, he had a terrible, terrible injury record. It's like one of the worst injury records, we've had in the squad over the last few years. It reminds me of Lallana's last 2 years. Naby Keita's also suffered, but Shaqiri's was very, very bad for a while. And I think that, he fell out of favour because of that. I think when he was actually at his sort of peak for Liverpool, which is maybe 3 months into his career, he scores 2 against United. He's getting picked every other week. He then has a bad series of, an injury that knocks him out of his stride. So I feel sorry for him. He leaves, as we've rightly said, with our appreciation for those big, big moments. But for me, a sense of frustration that we didn't get even more big moments from him, because I think he had, like we saw that screamer he scored for Switzerland in the Euros, and I think there's another international competition, maybe a World Cup, where he scores goal of the frigging tournament. I thought, well, they scored some nice goals for us. I thought we were due another 10 really from his career, but as I think you've all said, is how could he have done better than the trophies he's won? How could he have contributed more? Because there just probably wasn't the room for him ultimately. So yeah, he goes, and hopefully there's room for one cheeky little transfer in the last week of the window left. Although I've equally been saying on the award-winning Transfer Gutter show that we do on our subscription service, that you should really listen to, it's that essential. I've been saying that there's arguably now not room for a new signing because of the progress of the likes of Harvey Elliott, but we shall see.
We shall see. There is an award-winning Gutter being recorded tomorrow morning. This is as much reminding me Bob as anything else that is out tomorrow. So do sort of check that out, and loads of stuff this week as well, looking ahead to Liverpool's very now exciting game against Chelsea. So we've got some fantastic stuff on audio and video all building up to that, including some historical stuff, and also some people who were involved in those games as well, who are going to be involved. So great time to subscribe to the Anfield Wrap. You'll have lots more in terms of reviewing the game against Burnley as well. But yeah, we're really, really excited when we're looking at our schedule for this week. Another thing I'll give a quick mention to as well before I ask the guys their quick thoughts on the Chelsea game is that the women's team kick off their season this weekend as well. We'll be there on Sunday. It's 2:00 at Prenton Park if you want to come along to that. We'd encourage everyone to do too. If you're a season ticket holder or a member, you get in completely for free. You do need to let them know you're coming, so you still need to go online and get a ticket. But if you are a season ticket holder or a member, you get it for free. If you're not, I think it's £6.50 for adults and £4 for children. So it's a really affordable day out. It's a brilliant family day, and we would encourage everyone to do that and get down to support the women on Sunday as they start their season at 2:00. Looks a really, really good squad. It's Matt Beard, who won the Super League at Liverpool, who's back managing them as well, and Matt's hopefully coming in tomorrow to have a little bit of a chat with us that we'll be putting out this week as well. But do try and get down Sunday at 2:00, especially if you've got families. It's a really good day out. Me and Neil and a few others are going to be down there on Sunday, and we'll be having a pint before if anyone wants to come and join us. And we'll all learn about this new squad together. It is there's not a test, it's all about enjoying it, and you'll get right into it, I can promise you that. But Chelsea, Josh, for the men on Saturday night, it's a massive game now. They look decent, Chelsea, it does have to be said. They've had a Lukaku who scored straight away, and they've got a good manager, they've got a good squad, and Liverpool can make a big statement by beating them on Saturday night.
100%, yeah. I think it was one of those that you earmark before the season starts anyway, but then, what we've seen from Chelsea and Liverpool so far, they both scored exactly the same amount of goals, neither of them have conceded. It makes it that little bit more mouth-watering, and Lukaku as well, the addition of him, he just looks like an absolute handful, doesn't he? Yesterday he gave Arsenal's defenders such a torrid time, but to be honest, I'm personally relishing the battle that him and Van Dijk will have, or him and Matip will have, because they'll probably try and play him off Matip more so than Van Dijk, but I think Matip will relish it. He was winning loads of headers against Burnley's lads at the weekend, so I think he'd be looking at Lukaku going, you're nothing compared to them, lad. But it will be a huge game under the lights at Anfield as well. I don't know if it'll actually go dark by then. I don't know. I'm sort of losing track of time at the moment because it's so cold and simultaneously warm. The weird climate we're in at the UK. It's going to be a huge game. Chelsea to me feel like the sort of biggest title rivals, and I know I feel like I'm writing off City a bit too much, but I just think City need a striker, because otherwise I don't see who's making the difference for them in big games, and they can flat track all the sides they want. But Chelsea to me are the ones who, particularly with Lukaku up top now, they'll be winning a lot of big games, and if Liverpool can finish ahead of them, then they're probably title winners.
It's arguably the biggest game of the last 10 years, Rob.
It is definitely the biggest game in our modern history. I'm several things at once. I'm quietly confident. I'm more confident having watched them beat Arsenal quite easily yesterday, because I don't think they were fantastic. I think they played well. I think Arsenal are a pile of crap and made life easy. Arsenal, I would genuinely go an early shout for at least bottom half of the table, unless they pull a couple of big signings out the window in the next week.
Early shout for first manager to be sacked.
Yeah, I mean, and Lukaku, whilst he will score a lot of goals, and there'll be times where he's lauded as exceptional, as good value for as value can be for 100 million fee. I can also see there could be times where there are echoes of the issues United had with him. He is not as quick or as mobile as some other types of forwards. Given how high up we like to play, I'd rather face Lukaku than Timo Werner. There, I've said it. Even though Lukaku is likely to put it in the goal if you give him a chance more than Timo Werner, and he might play both. I think it's a hard game, but let's just say that. And I think if we come out of it unbeaten, and look and edge it but unbeaten, I'm not going to cry about a draw. Much as I'd like to win, I think winning it would be huge and be a marker at this stage. But no one should get despondent if it's just a really big battle that each side just eventually have to take a point from.
What are your thoughts? Early doors, Ian?
Same as Rob's, basically. Chelsea are an excellent football team. They did, if I remember rightly, flag a little towards the end of last season. They kind of laboured a little bit.
Well, they had the Champions League focused, didn't they?
Yeah, so that does distract you. I think Lukaku is a fantastic footballer. He puts the ball in the back of the net. He does it repeatedly, which is a fantastic thing for any forward to do. There was a good point made in The Guardian this morning that he possibly takes a little bit away from the fluency of the game, because he's more of a fixed focal point than other forwards that they've used. One of the lads coming away from the match on Saturday, we were having a conversation about Chelsea, and he was like, well, the thing Tuchel's got is that he can now substitute pretty much like for like. So he's got the system he wants, and when he takes a player off, he's putting on another player who does exactly the same job to the exact same standard, which is a great position to be in. They've got a cracking squad. They play good football. Tuchel's got them playing things, but I think 1 to 11, we're better.
1 to 11, we're better. We're going to have the crowd as well on Saturday. It's something to really, really look forward to. And as I say, we'll be looking forward to it from Ernest from Wednesday on the Anfield Wrap subscription service. So make sure you subscribe to the Anfield Wrap, theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe. If you want to do that, £7 for audio or video and £10 for both. So yeah, check that out. But in the meantime, thanks a lot to Rob, to Josh, and for Ian to joining me. Up the Reds. The Reds are looking great. The Reds are looking great.